Have you ever heard this before? I can't believe you're so lazy. You do nothing around this house. Obviously, you don't care about anything around this house. Or maybe something like this. I can't believe you spent our entire saving on that useless purchase. You're always wasting money. Well, if this is something that you are familiar with, stick around because today I will be sharing with you 5 tactics that one can employ in resolving conflict in relationship. Hello everyone and welcome to another video on building a stronger bond. I'm yours truly, Coach Sue, your certified relationship coach. And in today's video, we will be looking at practical and solution-oriented tips that can be useful in resolving conflict in relationship. And we are going to use relatable experiences and real life experiences to provide practical advice. Now, couples often face challenges and issues within their relationship, and oftentimes it becomes a burden or it becomes a big issue within the relationship. Why? Because we're our own being, we have our own thought process, and we think differently. And so in relationship, conflict is inevitable. But the problem is, how effectively can we resolve those problems? Now, most of the times, or if you're not in a committed relationship, it's easy to get up and say, listen, I'm done with this, I'm not dealing with this. But when you're in a committed relationship, it is more difficult for you to get up and say that. And so therefore finding solution-oriented tactics that can help you to resolve this conflict can be beneficial in your relationship. Now, oftentimes when couples are trying to resolve conflict, it becomes an issue where the couple is focusing on the individual instead of the issue itself. Now, this can become very distracting and it can cause conflict because then partners might start to become disrespectful, start showing insulting words, and even going back into the past, digging up issues in the past when in truth and in fact they're dealing with issues of the present. It can even cause individuals to raise their voice, change their tone, and it's like an out of control situation because individuals might feel like they are being attacked or their character is being questioned or they're being demeanor in the conversation. And so it is very important for individuals to focus on what the issue is. Why is it that we're having this conflict instead of start attacking the person's character or behavior? Let me give you an example. Sometimes you will hear something like this. Oh, you are so lazy. You do nothing around this house. You're often playing video games. It doesn't seem as if you care about this house. I am the only person who cares about this house. Or you might hear something like this. You constantly waste money and purchase useless things. You're such a spendthrift. I can't save anything with you. We can't do anything together because you don't know how to save. These statements can be very hurtful. Why? Because you're focusing on attacking the person and attacking their behavior instead of addressing the issue at hand. Let's look at a conflict resolution way of resolving this conflict. I feel really overwhelmed with house chores. Maybe we could develop a chore schedule and divide the chores and see how we can divide the chores more evenly. What do you think about that? Now that is different. Now, involving your spouse and using the I statements will grab your spouse's attention and it will make them have more empathy towards your situation. Now, if you find yourself working against each other and it's more of a point scoring basis where each individuals are trying to see who can better justify their situation, in that case, nothing will be done and the issue will continue to be. So it is very important for spouses to develop good problem solving skills in resolving their issues. So providing empathy, listening, and attacking the problem instead of attacking the person can be very useful. Remember, you are a team and you are building a stronger bond. No one is the enemy here. And oftentimes couples look at or forget to identify that, listen, we're not the enemy. We are the teammate here. And we're trying to build bond to find solution-oriented tactics that is helpful in us resolving conflict in our relationship. I know sometimes individuals might get from a 0 to a 10 in a very quick span of time, and the things that comes out of the mouth is just so insulting and very disrespectful. And so in this case, individuals will want to try to exercise self-control. Now, not everything that comes to the brain you speak through the mouth. You will have to learn self-control and how to filter your thought process so you can get them out in the best effective way, the best meaningful way to your spouse so they can understand where you're coming from. So teamwork is always the dream work. And if you think you're going to say something that is insulting or something that is disrespectful, it is better to be quiet. Say nothing. Say nothing until you have gathered your thoughts and you think that you are in the right frame of mind where you can be respectful to your spouse and whatever you're saying can come out as effective as you want it to be. Now, if tip number 1 is something that you can relate to, put in the comment section, relatable tip number 1. Relatable tip number 1. Tip number 2, use I statements when expressing feeling. Let's draw back on the example in tip number 1 as it relates to house chores. You never do anything around this house. You always sit and watch video game. So instead of using the word you as if you're attacking the person, use statement like, I feel overwhelmed about doing all the house chores. I feel burdened. I feel like I'm not getting any rest. In this case, then your spouse will be better able to express empathy, will look at your conversation in a different narrative instead of feeling attacked. And this way you can get your spouse attention. Now let's look at another practical example. Common example. We know in relationship, there are always someone who is better at the finances or have better money management skill, while the other tends to be a spendthrift. Now in this situation, you might have a situation where you feel that your partner spend recklessly, do not think about what they're spending on, just do impulsive buying. Instead of saying, you are a spendthrift, you are always wasting money, I can't deal with you, you never think about the future. Instead, say things like this: I think we need to work better on our money management skills. Let us work out a budget and see how we can better save for our future, how we can better save and plan better. That's a more effective tactics, because in that way, you're not attacking the person's character, or you're not talking down to the person or attacking the person's behavior. And so you will get their attention to be more involved into analyzing and looking at what you are saying. Or you could even say something like this: I'm feeling stressed about our financial situation, especially after the recent purchase, because you wanted to make it in the moment. You're not going to make reference to something that happened in the past. So you will say, especially as it relates to our recent purchase, I think we need to sit down a little bit more and, do a budget and analyze our spending. That's a very more effective way where your partner will feel like you're not attacking his or her character, or you're not attacking his or her behavior, but you're attacking the issue of financial management within your relationship. Now, if this is relatable, put relatable number 2. And if number 1 is also relatable, put relatable number 1, relatable number 2. Tactic number 3, choosing the right place and the right time. Very important. Now, where you choose to resolve conflict and how you choose to resolve conflict is very important. Now, if you're in a crowded area, you are at a mall or at a dinner, I am not expecting you to be resolving conflict in public spaces. However, some people choose that as an option, but normally that tends not to be effective. Also, resolving conflict when there is less tension and less pressure. Sometimes individuals might feel tired after work and exhausted, and their headspace is just not there to have a discussion about resolving conflict. So choosing the right place, choosing the right time is very essential, just to ensure that you're coming up with good problem solving skills and that you're not on the defense or the attacking side, and that you're thoughtful about the other person's feelings and you're thoughtful about the other person's headspace. Now, a situation might look like this. You might say to your spouse, we need to have a conversation, we need to resolve this conflict. And a good response might be for a spouse who might feel overwhelmed or really tired with work. Well, honey, today might not be the best time to resolve this conflict. Can we do it another time? And the spouse needs to be intentional about the time and the day. They need to be very specific. So, for example, using a date as, can we do this tomorrow after dinner, or can we talk about this on Friday? But the intention is to get the issue resolved. And so the spouse needs to be specific about when they would want to resolve the issue and the time in which they want to resolve the issue. Because if you don't do that, then the other spouse might feel like you're trying to ignore the situation, you're not trying to come up with good problem solving skills, and this might be a problem. Therefore, suggesting a quiet space and a quiet time will help both parties to feel that they are not rushed and feel that they're overwhelmed with the situation. Now, if tip number 3 is relatable, I want you to type into the comment section. Tip number 3, relatable. As a matter of fact, if tip number 1, 2, and 3 is relatable, type in the comment section. Relatable, tip number 1, tip number 2, and tip number 3. Tip number 4, practice active listening and empathy. Now, it's very important for you to listen to your spouse's point of view without interrupting, practicing things such as saying, I understand, or nudging the head will show your partner that you're in tune with their situation, you're in tune with their feeling, and you understand their point of view, even if you don't agree. Let's look at an example. A spouse might say, I'm just tired of my job. I feel overwhelmed. I don't want to go there. I just don't feel value. Please do not say, well, how are we going to survive? If you don't want to have your job, how are we going to manage? How are we going to pay the bills? That's not a good thing to say. I know most of the times we are inclined to, say stuff like that, but a good way to empathize with your spouse would be saying, oh, well, really? What's happening? Like, tell me more. Why do you feel this way? What do you want to do about it? Like, stuff like those shows empathy to your spouse and will help them to come up with a better resolution for the issues that they're going, and they will feel valued, like you care about their well-being, you care about how they feel, and you care about what's going on in their life. Here's another common one. A spouse might express feelings about not spending enough time with the other partner because of work, and they feel overwhelmed and they feel that they're not spending enough time together. Do not say this, well, if I don't go to work, how am I going to survive? I have to work, I have to do the shift so we can pay the mortgage, so we can pay the bills. I know we're tempted to say things like that, but instead say something like this. I do value spending time with you. I do miss spending time with you. We will need to work out a practical schedule that works for both of us, where we can spend quality time together, because it's important to spend quality time together. In that case, the spouse who feel like they're not getting enough time will feel empathy, will feel that you sympathize with them, that you hear what they say, and that you're listening to their needs. This is another practical example. Now, if tip number 4 is resonate with you, put relate tip number 4. And if tip number 1, 2, 3, and 4 resonate with you, I want you to put in the comment section, resonate tip number 1, tip number 2, tip number 3, and tip number 4. Tip number 5, work towards a solution that is beneficial for the relationship. Now, oftentimes when brainstorming and resolving conflict, coming up with a solution that will benefit one partner instead of the other might not seem fair. So it is best to work out a solution that is not necessarily beneficial for the partner, but is beneficial for the relationship. Brainstorming ideas, communicating and laying out ideas together is a good way for a partner to bond and develop solution-oriented skills or solution-oriented goals that is beneficial for the situation and that is healthy for the relationship. Therefore, it is important to prioritize health and happiness of the relationship over individuals' desires. Let's look at a practical example. Say, for example, a spouse might be open to a better job opportunity in another city or town, and therefore this will take relocating to that city or town. But the other spouse is hesitant about that because they don't want to disrupt their life flow, they don't want to disrupt their community, their involvement is like they're really settled at where they're at, and they don't want to disrupt, they're just not comfortable disrupting that flow. In this situation, it is best for both partners to brainstorm, list the pros, list the cons, see which will be beneficial to move or not to move. You will want to take into consideration finances. Are we better able to afford this? Are we better able to stay here? And so things like that you will involve together to see how you can come up with solution-oriented ideas that is beneficial for the relationship and not necessarily for the individual. This is a demonstration of collaboration and prioritizing the well-being of the relationship to come up with resolution that is beneficial for the situation at the time. Now, if tip number 5 is relatable, type in the chat relatable tip number 5. And if tip 1 through 5 is relatable, go ahead and type in the comment section relatable tip number 1, relatable tip number 2, relatable tip number 3, relatable tip number 4, and relatable tip number 5. Now let's recap. We have looked at 5 tactics that one can employ in resolving conflict in relationship. Number 1, do not attack the person, attack the problem. Number 2, use I statements when expressing feelings. Tip number 3, choose the right time and the right place. Tip number 4, practice active listening and empathy. And tip number 5, work towards a solution that is beneficial for the relationship. Now, if any of these tips that I have given you can resonate with, or you find very helpful or useful, go ahead and give a thumbs up, leave a comment section, and also state give us points of how you resolve conflict in your relationship. Go ahead and type in the comment section. Put in the comment section tips that you employ in resolving conflict in your relationship. Now, thanks for watching Building a Stronger Bond, where we strive to build stronger homes, stronger churches, stronger community. Until I see you in another video, goodbye.
Like, comment, and subscribe.